welcome back to World Crisis Radio. So keep up with all of this at Tarpley.net. By the way, Great Britain has now entered Bruning territory. Ungovernability. Great Britain ungovernable. Now with a hung parliament. The ruling class plutocrat, this languid British aristocrat, the kind of people that brought you the Wars of Roses. Actually, he's illegitimate descendant of King William IV, we're told. That is David Cameron, the leader of this Conservative Party of Great Britain, wants to impose draconian, brutal, killer austerity. He won't have an absolute majority of the House of Commons. So that's good for the British people that they don't have, that the Conservatives, these awful Tories, don't have more votes. I would say the best thing to come out of Britain is get rid of Gordon Brown somehow, then let Cameron and his friends in the Liberal Democratic Party, the telegenic Clegg, who turns out to be a fizzle, let them take power for a little while, try to impose austerity, then they'll be swept away, and then some kind of a more radicalized version of the Labour Party, let's call it the old Labour Party, as distinct from the failed new Labour of Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, might take power. But let's look at the stock market. We had the Dow down 1,000 points, minus 10%. We had the NASDAQ down 200 points, 10% or more. We had the Standard & Poor's down 100 points, and that broke through the 50-day moving average, the 100-day moving average, the 200-day moving average, all of those taken out. What was it? I would say two things. If you listen to the CNBC smart money team, these are, quite frankly, options traders, but they pick up the scuttlebutt. The word seems to be that a hedge fund, one or more hedge funds, went into liquidation somehow behind the scenes. You think of the crony bailouts, the backdoor bailouts that Greenspan did for long-term capital management and other hedge fund hyenas. Something is going on. Some hedge fund hyena bit off more than they can chew. They succumbed, and that was what was happening already on Wednesday afternoon in the final hours. And then I would say the crash, the 1,000-point crash, has something to do with the dumping of assets. This is the first part of the explanation. The dumping of assets of a mortally wounded hedge fund, perhaps fighting to stay afloat, and perhaps even saved by a backdoor bailout from Bernanke and company. That's certainly possible. Now, everybody points to the fact that Procter & Gamble went down from 60 to 40, and everybody says that's impossible. Go back and look in Surviving the Cataclysm. You'll find that Procter & Gamble is one of the long list of companies that has made huge losses through derivatives, once again. Any company can go bankrupt in an instant because they're all derivatives. Don't call it Procter & Gamble. It's not Procter & Safe. It's Procter & Derivatives. It's not General Motors. It's General Derivatives. It's not General Electric. It's General Derivatives. They're all derivatives. Derivatives everywhere. And if you don't believe me, pass the relevant law. Make that all reportable, and you'll find out how many derivatives there are stuck even in these companies that supposedly don't do derivatives. So the first area is the dumping of assets, quite possibly compounded. Could just simply be a huge derivatives loss that leaked out from one of these companies. We won't know that from some days. Maybe we'll never know it, right? Maybe they decide that under the post-9/11 state of emergency, that's a national security matter. You don't know what they're going to do because you've got, who do you got? Geithner? You've got Mark Patterson, his chief of staff, the leading green lobbyist of Goldman Sachs, as I pointed out in another commentary on Russia Today this week. And then you've got Mary Shapiro at the Securities and Exchange Commission and this Gensler at the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. Not reliable, not exactly muckrakers, not exactly populist fighters for the public interest, nothing like that. So the first phase, I think, is either a hedge fund going bankrupt or derivatives losses. The second thing, though, is that this is then magnified in the general context of panic, because a panic had been building all week around Greece, and by the time this started to happen, it was already down about 300 to 350 points. Then we get the program traders, flash traders, and high-frequency traders. Here in the helpful Wall Street Journal of today, we find that we're talking about TradeBot Systems, Inc., Kansas City, Missouri, and TradeWorks, Inc. of New Jersey, high-frequency trading platforms. And this could be how it was magnified. It's also quite possible that some geek, some wolf out there, has figured ways to game this system, in other words, to cause these things. Other explanations that a significant part of the Japanese yen carry trade was being forced into reverse, or some other carry trade, right? We know that people borrow money at 0% in certain markets and take it to some other highly risky market where you can get 10 or 15%. So when Accenture went to 1 cent and Procter & Gamble went down and Exxon went down 8 points or whatever it was, some combination of those. And what's the answer? Yeah, it's simple. Outlaw high-frequency trading. Outlaw program trading. Outlaw flash trading. It's simple. Generally speaking, we're hearing that the New York Stock Exchange now accounts for only about 1/5 of all trades, and therefore it's impossible to halt trading in some of these stocks. It's impossible to have the circuit breakers, the market pause kicking in, right? In theory, the stock market is supposed to shut down if it loses 10% and you are approaching that point. It's supposed to shut down for various periods of time. You can look this up in the press or at their website. But there are now so many competing platforms. You can buy the same stock sometimes on the NASDAQ. You can buy them on 10 electronic trading platforms. All of this stuff has got to be re-regulated, and I believe also go back for larger trades. Go back to the system of specialists on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Re-regulate, force trading onto exchanges out in the open where it is transparent. On the other hand, notice that the crash took place on heavy volume, so it indicates that there's something real going on. So this is a cataclysmic world economic depression. We should point out, it is a depression. This is not a recession. Recession implies, even if it's a severe recession or the Great Recession, that we're somehow living through yet another phase of this so-called business cycle of recession and recovery, boom and bust, which has dominated the U.S. since 1945. That is not what it is. It is a breakdown crisis. It is a world economic depression. It's a world depression. Back in 2008, you could say, well, this is essentially a derivatives crisis destroying the U.S. and British banks, and the other events came from that. That is no longer the case. It is now the European Union, the southern tier of the euro, right, the so-called pigs. I hate to say pigs for countries that actually, if you look at them together, that's most of Western civilization represented by the pigs. But Portugal, Ireland, Italy, Greece, Spain, and others, these countries now being driven under by hedge funds, a lot of them based in the U.S. and British space, of course, going down. Japan has one of the highest ratios of debt to GDP. I think Japan is second only to Zimbabwe on most counts. It's about 200% of their debt is 200% of their gross domestic product. So they're going to be targeted. China will not be immune. China will be pulled down if only because Europe, to whom they sell a lot, is going down. India will not be immune. It is a world economic depression. Back in a minute.